Hey everybody, this is Kenny with a new edition of the Yak with Mac, where we seek to inspire, encourage, and influence leaders to be just great at what they're doing every day. And last week we talked about a specific skill, branding. Branding is a skill. It's something that you really have to give some thought to. Hopefully you've done that. I want to talk about today another skill, and we're going to build here. This isn't going to be too deep today, but we're going to start to build on some more skills. Branding is something that hopefully you found that you had to put a lot of thought into. Today is not something you have to put a lot of thought into, but you've got to really make this part of your behavior. So yesterday was Sunday, September 13th. Absolute historic day. There was sports on all over the place. It was the first day of football. I was watching the Mets. There was baseball on all over the place. There was an NBA playoff game on. There was hockey on. There was tennis on. Probably somewhere they were playing badminton as well. There was just sports on all over the place. At some point I had to walk away. I had stuff to do anyway, but I had to walk away. Anyway, the reason why I'm talking about sports real quick is I want to ask you this question, and this will tie into leadership in just a bit. I want to ask you this question. Do you boo when you go to sporting events? It's been a while since we've been allowed to go to sporting events here in New York. It's going to be still a while before. But when you go, do you boo? Do you boo the opponent? Do you boo your home team? Well, I had a rule in my life, and I have it back now, that I would never boo my home team, no matter what. So just so you know, I'm a fan of the New York Mets, the New York Jets, and the New York Knicks. So over the years, I've had a lot of stuff that I could have booed about. But I really refrained from it until one night, summer night back in 1987. Going to take you way back. I was in my early 20s at the time. And Gary Carter of the New York Mets, Hall of Fame player, just an outstanding player, outstanding catcher, was having a really tough season that year. He had a great year in 86 when the Mets won. Whole Met team was really having a tough time in 87, but Gary Carter especially, and he drew the fans' wrath for whatever reason. Seemed like every time he got up there with men on base and he would strike out. He was really having a tough time getting going that year. And I remember going to a game at the old Shea Stadium with two of my friends, and Gary Carter that night, I broke that rule because I started booing him. And I just kind of got sucked into the crowd where I booed him as well, because his first time up, everybody was booing. People were standing up and booing. And I did the same. And my buddies were looking at me, what are you doing, man? It's Gary Carter. He's one of the best players still in baseball. Why are you booing him? I'm like, he stinks this year, though. Right in with the crowd. I broke my rule. I had never done that as a kid, and I had been to a lot of games at this point. So anyway, Gary Carter gets up first time, he strikes out with men on base. Second or third time, same thing, strikes out, men on base. Flash forward to the bottom of the ninth inning, the Mets are down by 1 run. If I remember that right, I think they were playing the Giants. And Gary Carter gets up, and half of the crowd is booing him. Half of the crowd is trying to cheer him on. I'm part of the crowd that's booing him. Well, after the second, maybe on the third pitch, Gary Carter hits a home run. Walk-off home run to win the game. What am I doing at that moment? I'm cheering him. Boy, did I feel like a hypocritical idiot. Because one moment I was booing him. The next moment, because he hit a home run, I'm cheering him. My friends really laid into me. They're like, don't you feel stupid? And I did. So what does any of that have to do with leadership? Folks, you should never, ever, ever boo your people. Now, this may sound, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but this may sound funny. Can you imagine your mobile expert spending a while with a customer and they miss maybe one or two things, and that customer leaves without buying? They don't ask for the sale, maybe. Imagine if you stood there and you went, boo, boo, and everybody else in the store booed that person. I'm not trying to be funny, because when you chastise that person, or you let an opportunity, because this would be one of your biggest opportunities that you have that day, you let an opportunity go by where you don't coach, in a very, very positive way, where you don't correct behavior in a very positive way, and then when you don't encourage that employee that kind of probably knows that they messed up, but maybe some of our consultants don't know that. Maybe they're like, I thought I said anything. I'm really surprised that person didn't buy. Folks, you fall short. As a leader, you've just fallen short, and you've just let the best opportunity of the day pass you by. Why should we encourage people? Well, I'll tell you, because in that whole interaction, that consultant didn't do 100% of everything wrong. There was some things I'm sure that consultant did right, and maybe that customer is going to be back. You just never know. But there were a lot of things that mobile expert did right. You've got to lift that up. You've got to encourage that. And why do you do that? This is going to sound very, very simple. Because you want them to do those behaviors again. So why do you course correct at that moment in a very positive way? Because you want them to stop the behavior that caused that customer to walk out. Here's the other thing. You have to get to know your people from the inside out. We've talked about that before. You just never know how your people will react and respond to booing or to that negative reinforcement. We pretty much know how people are going to respond to positive reinforcement and to encouragement and to coaching when it's done right. We don't always know how somebody's going to respond when it isn't done right. I'll go back to a sports analogy. Been following the Mets for a long time. Gary Carter bounced back, had a big year in 1987. In 1988. The next year he had a big year. The Mets went back to the playoffs that year. In 87, he actually picked it up after that home run in August. He picked it up for the rest of that month and for the month of September. And he finished, like I said, with decent statistics. A low batting average, if I remember right. I want to say it was 235, 20, 23 home runs, 80, 85 RBIs, something around that area. He never let the booing get to him. People asked him, are you hearing it? Of course he heard it, but he didn't let it get to him. He knew he was trying his best. And as fans, we should know that. As leaders, you've got to know that too. I'm not talking about coaching effort. That's a different thing. But if someone is really trying hard and you boo them, how are they going to react? Because Gary Carter reacted well. I'm going to give you 3 examples of Met players that didn't react well. Bobby Bonilla. You know how he reacted to getting booed? He put in earplugs. And he put in earplugs that fans could see, and what did they do? They booed him even louder. Just never clicked with Bobby Bonilla and the New York fans. Carlos Beltran. Very sensitive. He got booed on opening day one time, which was, I can't imagine why. But you know how he reacted? He hit a home run, and it was kind of customary for that time for Met players to come out and do a curtain call. He totally refused to do it. It's like, they booed me, now they're cheering me. I'm not going to acknowledge it. Either way. Carlos Beltran also kind of a love-hate relationship with New York and with the Mets. This goes back to the 70s. Most of you won't remember a player named Richie Hebner. He was a very good player with the Pirates. When the Mets got him, I think they got him actually from the Phillies maybe. But very good player. You know how he reacted to getting booed? Because he never liked it here. He didn't want to come here. He got traded against his wishes. He didn't like the big city. He just didn't like it here, and he was having a lousy year, and the Met fans were booing him like crazy. You know how he reacted? He reacted by giving the fans an obscene gesture. How bad was that? Right? So different people react in different ways to booing. Not everybody's going to bounce back. You might have that employee that takes that booing, and they're like, hey, I'm going to rock and roll with this. But you may have folks that react like Richie Hebner, or like Carlos Beltran, or like Bobby Bonilla. Leaders, don't miss those opportunities. They happen every single day. You have that opportunity to lift people up, to encourage them, to course correct right away, but you do that in a fantastic way by making great eye contact and by really addressing the behavior and not the person. I'm going to leave you with this. I wish that it was me that said this. I don't know who did first. I know it wasn't me because I've heard this before. But you have to be the CEO of your store. of your district, the chief encouragement officer. If you spent all day encouraging your team, just imagine the results of that. So I'm going to leave it there, leaders. We're going to talk about more leadership stuff next week. But for now, this is Kenny with the Yak with Mac. We'll talk to you next week.